Ladies and gentlemen, check this out. So the PNP has planned to scrap the rural school bus system if they win the election. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking about the People's National Party, and many people believe that it is because we are, what you would say now, brainwashed or intoxicated with the Jamaica Labour Party, why we say that we should stick with the current government that we have. Because, ladies and gentlemen, for the government to bring in something that is safe, that is reliable, and that is affordable to our school children, a bus system, ladies and gentlemen, that is affordable, reliable, and safe, because on those buses you have wardens, you have trackers to know where your children are, and if the buses ever come off route, they would immediately know where the bus is. And a system where the children can pay cheaper fares, and the PNP is planning to scrap it, ladies and gentlemen, that's a red flag. That's a red flag to know that Jamaicans should utterly reject them at the polls. Because, ladies and gentlemen, they want to bring in a system where their friends can benefit. That is the reason why they want to come up with this 20,000 taxes that they want to pay to transport children, 20,000 unsafe taxis that they want to pay to transport our children. And ladies and gentlemen, in one constituency alone, you can find that 20,000 persons. What about the other children across Jamaica? So, ladies and gentlemen, the more the People's National Party talk is the more they are showing up their colors. Remember the saying, the higher the monkey climbs is the more he exposed. The more they talk, ladies and gentlemen, is the more they are exposing themselves. They are allowing the country to see who they are from before they decide to go to the polls. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we dare put them back in power, the country, instead of going forward, is going to go backward. Because, ladies and gentlemen, these people don't care about our children. They don't care about the safety of our children. What they want is that their friends, they want a system where nepotism can creep in, corruption can creep in, and neglect. Some of the children would be neglected because they would not be catered for. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am glad that they tell us from now, so that when we talk about the deficiency of the People's National Party, persons can see why we say that the People's National Party is bad news for Jamaica at this time. Because they want to take us back in the days, ladies and gentlemen, that where persons have to be packed up in a taxi, children have to be packed up even in the car trunk in order to get to school. Many persons, many children have to stand for hours at the bus stop before they can get a bus. Because what? And even when the buses come, some of them don't even want to carry the children because they say the children's money are small. Some of them want to go as far as charging children adults fare. Now they are getting a system that is designed especially for them, and the People's National Party is planning to scrap it if they get in office. Now, ladies and gentlemen, can't you see that the People's National Party don't love you like that? They want you to bring them in power so that they can reintroduce corruption. I hear people talking about Mr. Holness, that Mr. Holness is a dictator. Ladies and gentlemen, if you employ people to work, he employ the ministers around him to work, right? And he appoint them their duties that they should do. When you, as a person who employ people to work, when you see them not doing their work, don't you put down, wouldn't you as an employer put down your foot to ensure that the work, that the people who you employed to work are being done? Would you not put down your foot to ensure that the work be done? That's why they're calling the man a dictator, because the man is putting down his foot for the right reason. And many of them believe that people should just take positions and collect money and don't do the work. So the man is ensuring that the work that they are getting paid to do is being done, and that's why persons call him a dictator. Now when I hear Damian Crawford saying that they're going to scrap the school bus system, it tells you, ladies and gentlemen, that these people are bad for Jamaica and should not see Parliament as the leaders, as a government of this country. Because I told people, all the time, that the People's National Party, the reason why a lot of people gravitate towards them is because they turn a blind eye on criminals. They allow communities to become garrisons, because what? They give criminals a slap on the wrist. And they are complaining about the JLP's approach towards fighting crime, simply because the JLP is taking a very tough approach towards fighting crime. They want the JLP to handle crime the way they have been handling it. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it have not worked in their favor. As a matter of fact, how they plan to fight crime, ladies and gentlemen, the People's National Party would allow communities to become garrisons once again. If it is a war against crime, it have to be a tough one, so that the criminal elements will know that the government is not into their foolishness. Because when you allow criminals to have their way, the growth of the country will be stagnated. Investors will stay away from the country. Even the tourists will stay away from the country. When the bad publicity of Jamaica has gone abroad, ladies and gentlemen, the entire nation will suffer. Because when it goes in international media that crime has spiraled out of control in Jamaica, they're going to tell their citizens not to visit Jamaica. And ladies and gentlemen, the People's National Party wants to get in power so that they too can reintroduce corruption, that they can reintroduce nepotism. Not just nepotism, because I keep stressing on that, but ladies and gentlemen, these people, they want to get in power so that they can collect money and enrich themselves while the poor suffer. Because when you hear Mr. Crawford, instead of endorsing the rural school bus system, he is saying that they're going to scrap it. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen? How can he be talking like that, being the person who is the opposition spokesman on education? Ladies and gentlemen, what about that child, that 9-year-old child that was kidnapped at the gate of her school and was unalived by a jealous ex-lover? What about that? If the school bus system was in place, that could have been unavoided. And you're going to tell me that you want to scrap the rural bus system? Ladies and gentlemen, for the growth of this country and for the protection of our children, vote against the People's National Party. Don't even consider them at the polls, because they don't love you like that. They only want to get in power so that, like a green lizard, they can show their true colors. They're disguising as these people who mean Jamaica well. Do you see these people like they mean Jamaica well? They are saying time come, because what they believe, the Jamaica Labour Party is getting all of the money and they're not getting none. So when you hear them saying time come, they are saying time come for them to scrape money from taxpayers to line their pockets, to line their friends' pockets. Ladies and gentlemen, They are saying time come for them to get their share of taxpayers' hard-earned money for doing nothing. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, be wise.